Hi there, folks. Welcome to our part three of our Fun with Photos. Today, we are going to be working on editing. And so, just a little recap of the last two seminars that we had on this topic. The first one was capture, how we got all the photos into the Photos app. Number two was how to the organize the photos into libraries, folders, smart libraries, and using favorites. Today, we're going to start working on some of the edits, and let's get to it. And as always, we're going to keep the questions to the end of the seminar. And as always, we'd like to hear your feedback and also what type of extra seminars as we go forward you might want to hear about. Additionally, as well, we got some, again, a new store on the North Shore um, to go up on Lonsdale and 13th. So if you're from that neighborhood as well, come on up there and visit Robert Cole and the crew up there. They're happy to help you out. All right, without any further ado, let's go to my photo program and let's get this rolling. Okay, so we should see, perfect. We've got my photo library up here as well, and we're good to go. So just a little recap here. In the left-hand side in the toolbar, we've got the library section, which is the upper left. We have the album section a little further down. And I've also, this time around, I went through my photo libraries and I went through to find a couple of photos that I wanted to show and demonstrate some of these techniques. So let's start right to it. I'm going to pick my favorites library, and I've tagged a few of these photos here that I want to use as an example to show you some of these editing techniques. So let's start off with this. As you can see here, I've got a picture of a lady down in the bottom right corner who's got the devil eyes going on here. And what we want to try and do is give her an exorcism and get these red eyes gone. So I'm going to double click that picture, and this will open up the picture in a large mode here. And I want you to note in the top left corner, top right corner, we've got a couple of tools up here at our disposal. Now, the first one I want to point out, if you don't know too much about color or light and things of that nature, there's a really handy tool, and it is called kind of the auto enhance feature. And you can see that it looks like a magic wand right up in the top, and it's right about here. And if you click this, Apple Photos is kind of going to go through the system or the photo, this particular photo, and try to auto enhance it. Maybe try to beef up the colors, correct for some white balance or overexposure areas. And it's a great place to start. So just for giggles here, I am going to choose it, and let's see what the results are going to be. Okay, well, it didn't fix the red eye, but it did kind of change some of the colors a bit as well. I'm going to just zoom out of that a little bit here. Go, you can do it. And if I want to undo the auto enhance feature, clicking the auto enhance feature once will change it. If you unclick it, it will undo those very same things. Now, that is one of the ways we can work it. The other thing we can do up in the edit menu here is you'll see a little rotate button. This is also kind of handy when you want to just kind of rotate things or reorient some of these photos. You might see it kind of get a little squishy at some point, but it will correct itself. All right, so let's really kind of get into the nitty gritties here. So the edit button in the top right corner. This is where we get all the goodies. And specifically, one of the things I'm looking for here, just get rid of one of these windows here. There we go. One more thing I wanted to show here before I get into the edit side here. Sorry, we select the edit button, and you will see three tabs in the top. One of them will be adjust, the middle one filters, and the last one crop. We're first going to start off with the filters section. And before I do, let's just get out of this picture and get to one of the other favorites here. There we go. Let's use this one. Now, I'm going to start off with the crop feature. The cropping feature allows us to redo this photo and kind of reframe what is going to be in the picture. So, for example, this was a picture from Guilin, China that I took. And what I want to do here is I want to kind of take myself in the bottom left corner here, and I just want to kind of frame that as my picture. Now, the first thing we can do is we can just grab these little handles in the top corner and the like, let it go, and you will see here that this picture has now been reframed, or in this particular case, cropped down to where I want to show the picture that I want. Now, in the top left, you will also see a revert to original. This will always undo the edits that you have done to the photo. This is another important point here as well. All of these edits and changes and things that we're doing here are non-destructive. It basically means that regardless of what you do to this photo, the original photo is still intact and is going to work, is still intact, and you'll be able to revert any of these changes if you wish. So for example, for the cropping feature here, you'll notice that I grabbed any of these corners, and as I'm moving these, you'll see here, wherever I let this go, this will adjust the picture. You will also notice on the right of the cropping window is a little, kind of like a compass. And this allows you to rotate the photo accordingly. So just like this, I can keep rotating until, well, quite a bit actually. Now, I'm going to undo this again, but the reason why I want you to see this in this particular window, if you move any of this, those lines that pop up as you're making those edits are there to kind of help you frame up the photo, particularly by the horizon. You will use these lines to kind of give the, kind of make things level again. All right. So if you see the horizon in the middle square is right about here, you can kind of frame that up a little more squarely to kind of give the horizon a proper look. And once I do that, you'll see that anything that is outside, any part of the picture that was outside of this is not shown. So that's how you could do this freehand. The other thing I want to show you as well, I'm just going to revert back to the original, is if you wanted to crop this photo so that it is going to fit on, let's say, a 5x7 or whatever type of printout you might want to make, we have this ability up here as well. There is a section in the right-hand side. There's a section there called aspect. Now, aspect ratio, let's say I want to take a bunch of photos and I want to crop them and prepare them for printout on a 5x7 sheet or paper. We can select that. So I'm going to choose, right now it's selected for freeform, but I want to kind of keep the aspect ratio so that it's the same no matter where I use it. So for example, if I now grab this corner up here, it's keeping, you'll see here that if I move up or down, it's maintaining the aspect ratio of this whole thing. And what that basically means is I can grab this photo again, pick me, and I can move any part of this photo that I want in this frame. So I want to put me more in that frame and then let that go. So what this has now done, this has created a 5x7 photo. and it's framed it up and it's kept the aspect ratio the same. This is important because if you take something like this to London Drugs, or if we're going to cover it in the next seminar where we go into sharing, you can get prints sent out and a whole bunch of these copied. But this is now maintained the right aspect ratio to print a 5:7 picture. You'll also hear that we also have 4:3. Changes that a little bit as well. And we've got a 3:5. You'll see that it adjusts the crop here accordingly. And we also have the ability to choose whether it is portrait or landscape. So for example, if I choose the portrait now, you'll see that it has changed this crop section here to be 5:7 in portrait mode. And you'll see the open area. I can now click and drag this and put whatever I want in this picture into that frame, and that is what will be printed out. I can also, by the same time, adjust the angle on this and the rotation to kind of set that out, to kind of get the right horizons, if you will. Now, I'm going to rotate this because I got it pretty close. The horizon is pretty much in line up here, so that kind of flattens everything out. And now I'm good to go. So this is a bit about cropping. And one more thing that we can do in here as well. We can always use the flip feature as well, just to kind of flip that around if you want to kind of change the perspective a little bit. So that's it about cropping. And again, remember, these are not destructive changes. So you don't have to worry about, hey, I redid this photo and you saved it. Well, it's not going to, it's undoable. And again, you can always select revert to original, or down here in the right, bottom right, where it says reset. And that will flip it back to the original picture. All right, so we're going to move on to the next section now. We've got filters. Now, filters, everyone's pretty much familiar with this if you've used Instagram, Facebook, and all that kind of stuff. Filters have been with us for quite some time, and Apple does a great job at giving us some quick little filters here to kind of help enhance quickly maybe the photo. So for example, I have now selected the filters section in the middle tab right up here, and we have a few selections here to choose from. We've got the original photo, vivid, which you see kind of gives us a little bit more pop, especially on that yellow of my shirt. And you can kind of whip through these at your leisure. And the one thing I wanted to show you about this, if you're kind of contrasting, what does this filter look like compared to, from the original, in the top left corner, as you are making some of these changes, if you follow the mouse there, you will see a little button up here. And this is basically the show photo without adjustments. It's kind of like a before and after feature. When you click this, this will show or revert the photo back to its original before I started making some of these changes, just like so. So if I push it down, it shows me the original. If I lift it up, it shows me what changes have been made. That's a pretty simple one for filters. But where the real power starts to come into is the adjustment feature. So I'm going to select that now. And what should happen here, once I select it, the full range of editing abilities of photos are now revealed. So in the top half, we've got the adjustments. Now, each one of these little triangles here in the editing field will, if you click it, it will drop down some additional features or additional things that we can do. I'm going to reset a few things here if you don't mind. Go. So let's start with these first three. We have lighting, we have color, and we have black and white. Now, these are just a few to start with, and the let's say for light, there's a few things I want to start off with. One, there is an automatic button up here where you can select this and it will automatically try to figure out what lighting needs to be fixed. And you'll also notice by me clicking this, it now has a check mark next to this particular adjustment, indicating that a adjustment is turned on. You can turn those on and off at will. So that's a quick way to kind of contrast what you are doing. The next little bar just underneath it, let me just do that one more time. If you wanted to undo it, the arrow is also here as well. So clicking that undoes the changes as well. Now, this lighting box is kind of like a single slider that allows you to move left and right, and it's kind of like a little mini macro slider. It's actually doing a bunch of different types of lighting lighting effects, lighting adjustments as we move that left and right. Now, you will note here, just underneath that sliding bar is an options button. Now, this is something where a lot of people, if they didn't notice that, will kind of say with photos like, well, you know, I kind of liked Lightroom or I kind of liked the old Aperture where I had all of these extra settings. Well, those settings never left. They just kind of got buried a little bit. So this is where we can find those options. And you'll see here, once I've exposed that, we've got all the usual camera adjustments that you might want to work on with lighting. So what I want you to observe is the first bar that we saw. If I click and drag this left or right, you will see here that this macro is automatically kind of making the adjustments for me in relation to, so for example, if I turn up the brightness a little bit more, it's going to kind of start reducing the highlights as well. So those are like the shadowed areas and things of that nature. So the idea here is if I make this move up here, this will also adjust some of the other details in this as a macro slider. Now, if I just wanted to go in and just work with brilliance, these are now the individual sliders. And if you move them, they are only affecting that one aspect or one adjustment. This behavior is pretty much the same through light, through color, and black and white. So I'm just going to go back and undo those changes here and set this back to normal. So a moment ago, you saw if I move the macro slider, it moves multiple adjustments to try and compensate for things. Now, when I get to the middle, you might find that this slider is a little sticky. It's meant to be that way. This is the center point where no adjustments are. So it's like a snap to feature. So you can always get it back to the middle section without any adjustments. Now, as I was saying a moment ago, if you want to go in here and start monkeying around with the individual adjustments, you can do so by just grabbing the thing you want to work with and adjust them accordingly and individually. So if you know a little bit more about color and photography than I do about lighting, this is where you're going to kind of work with it. This is usually something called luminescence, which means the brightness of the photos. The next one down. So I'm just going to close that light one here. Actually, I'll leave it open. We're going to go now to the color. Now, this is one where we got a lot of really neat options in here as well. Just like we had up at the top, we could select auto, and it will try to kind of correct for some of these color features. Or we can undo that, and we can use the macro. So if I start to move this down here, like saturation, or move this up a little bit in contrast, you'll see that it's going to really start to make that photo pop a little bit more for some color, because it was a gray day and not a lot of color out there. So I'm holding down the before and after effect here. So this was before, this is after, where we got a little bit more detail. And we can also individually tweak these as well if you want a little bit more or a little bit less. Now, we're going to move down. Well, black and white's pretty self-explanatory. Once you're in here, you can either select auto, or you can just kind of start sliding things as well and get some really interesting versions of black and white. And again, opening up the options tab just below it will kind of give you an idea of what things are being adjusted. Let's get that off just like so. And we can make any of these adjustments here to neutrals, a little bit more of the tone. That really makes that chrome dome pop out. The idea here is you get to play with these, but these where the controls are hidden. So this is where you kind of go in and explore some of these fun little features. We're just going to jump into a couple more things here. I found selective color. This was an interesting one because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to undo or turn off some of the filters that I've already turned on. And I want to go to selective color. This was a very cool little feature that I started playing with not too long ago. This allows me to kind of go in here. You'll see here that these greens on the hills are a little washed out as far as I'm concerned. And I want to try and isolate that color and try to see if I can make that just kind of pop out a little bit more. Now, you can only do so much with this because if the camera didn't take the greatest of shots, or you didn't have your settings right on the camera, you might have some areas on a really cloud day where you're just not going to get that color that you want. This is another way to go about doing it. With the selective color adjustment window exposed, you will see right around here, there is a little eyedropper. That eyedropper, once we click it, means that we can go out here and we want to try and find specifically a color to kind of isolate and see if we can kind of enhance that a bit. So my goal in this one is to try and see if I can add a little bit more green on this hillside and make it pop. So I've selected that eyedropper and I clicked right about here, and you'll see over in my selective color menus here, it's kind of changed to a green color. And that's going to allow me to start making some adjustments here to try and maybe make those, make the hills a little greener if I can. Saturation, bring that up. You'll see that in the bottom left corner where the town is down here, you'll see a little bit more pronounced, green color popping up as I start to adjust this. There we go. Not too bad, but I think I've got a better picture here where I had a little bit more detail. Ah, this was the one. So on this trip to Vietnam, now I've already done some of the selective color tricks here, and I'm going to show you the original in this one. You'll see here that when I go to the originals, the green's not too bad. It doesn't pop. There's a little bit of the sky where it's really kind of just all white for the most part. Now, when I go back to the adjustments that I made, you'll see that the green really pops out, and I've got a lot more blue in the sky. So this is a really handy way to kind of start making the selections and adjusting them accordingly using this little eyedropper tool. Again, select the eyedrop, pick a color that you want to work with or adjust. Once you click there, you should notice that these controls change. And I can choose each one of these that make up that color and make some of those adjustments. So it's a little greener as well. All right, so it's about the parts that I'm going to cover relating to, the editing functions regarding color that I'm going to deal with. The ones we're going to work on now is the retouch and the red eye. The retouch one is kind of like, oh man, I wish, it was a great photo, but there's some blemishes and things of that nature. We're going to kind of go into this and show you how that is now done. Again, these same features are also on iPads and on iPhones as well. They might be a little different in how they work, but these adjustments are still there. Incidentally, as well, if you are an iCloud user who have all of your photos up in iCloud and across all your devices, the edits you do here will also show up on all of the other devices as well. So if you want to have the original picture unedited, I suggest making a duplicate of that photo so that you've got the original and you've got an edited copy as well. All right, so let's go choose a picture with, I'll come back to this one, but there was one here, and I think it might have even been the one where I've got my head in the shot there in the lower corner. Let's go to, there it is. So I am going to zoom in a little bit here. And the reason why I'm doing this is I want to go to the retouch section, which is right here. And what this is going to allow me to do is this. This was a very hot day, and I've got a bunch of blemishes that I'd like to kind of clear up if I can. So I've zoomed into, wow, you did a shave that day too. Wow. A couple of bug bites, maybe I want to get off too. So let's start off with the retouch button, which is right up here. And this is going to be a brush-based tool. Whereas when I click this, so the little brush tool right here, if I move out onto the canvas now, you will see that my cursor is now turned into a circle. And I can adjust this brush size by dragging and sliding that particular tool. Now, right over here, there's a little red dot in the back of my head there. What I'd like to do is I'd like to start kind of cleaning that up a bit. And so what I'm going to do is we're just going to make that a little smaller. There we go. That's about right. And automatically, when I move this over, this is what's called kind of like a cloning tool. It's a rudimentary retouch. It's not as advanced as what you can do in Photoshop or Affinity Photo or one of those other higher end ones. You can even do a little bit of this in Lightroom too, but for real full-fledged photo editing, that's usually where you want to get into either Affinity Photo or Adobe Photoshop or something along those lines. But this is going to be rudimentary ones. So I want to get rid of this little red dot here. And I have taken my brush and I've got this little red dot within the circle. I'm just going to click once. If I click once here, you should see that that blemish is now gone. This is simply how it goes about doing it. And what it's actually doing is it's taking a cloned area, like another part of this photo that's very, very similar. And you just click it once, and you can even drag it out like this as well if you wanted to work it to kind of cover more of an area. But you might see it leaves the photo a little weird, like there's a little faded line here. I'm going to undo that, and you'll see that that has returned to normal. If I undo it again, you should see those blemishes come back. So that's the original photo. Now, the way that we can, here's the issue. Let's say if I want to get rid of that blemish again, and I want to kind of keep the colors roughly the same. It's going to use something nearby to fill this. Now, let's say I didn't want to do that. This section right here, it kind of looks a little darker and smudgy. And, well, I don't want to have that. You can take your mouse, go find a patch of skin or part of the photo that you want to use as the source to blend this in. you hold down the Option key, and you will see that my mouse is now turned to a cursor instead, sorry, a cross instead of a circle. If I hold that down and click here, my circle, when I go to use this, is now going to use that area as source, the source colors to add to this blemished area. So watch what happens when I click and hold my mouse. If I click and hold here, and if I move that, you see where that little crosshair is now using that area of skin to fill this. So that little mouse was kind of moving around up here. So if I do that again, I'm just going to undo it. Control Z, and I click and hold. You will see right away as I'm clicking and holding and about to do it, the cross at the top of my head is where it is using to blend in this source area. So just like that. And you see here, now there's really hard to tell. Now, we're going to move on to one smaller piece here as well. I'm kind of feeling I got a lot of blood vessels coming up on the side of my cheek there. And we're going to see if we can kind of smooth that out a bit. And I would like to use, let's say, this part of the skin right here, because that's the part I think is a little bit more colored or uniform as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to hold down the Option key. Look at the cross. I want to click this area. And that now means that my brush, as I'm working this, I'm just clicking a bit at a time because I want to do it. This is going to start to smooth out and even out all the bits that I want to work with here. So that's kind of smoothing things. There's another little dark patch here. Oop, I got to also watch it because that area that I'm working with is getting pretty close to the sunglasses there, and I don't want to kind of put a dark spot in there. So let's just redo that clone section here. So I'm going to click. That's more of the skin that I want, and kind of fill this out a bit. If it looks, see, that's not too bad. That's kind of filled that out a little bit. If I want to get rid of any more, there we go, any more of those little blemishes, I can individually kind of touch them and get rid of them. That's not bad. And let's get rid of this one here. So that's not too bad. Now, if I go back and kind of go to the before and after button, quite a difference in that regard. At least I noticed it anyway. But this is a way that you can kind of go through that and do the retouching at the rudimentary level. And let's see here. Last but not least, let's start to deal with the red eye. So we're going to call up a different picture here. I'm just going to zoom this out. And we're going to go to that red eye picture. Here we go. And let's just zoom out a little bit. So much like the retouch adjustment tool, the red eye does a very similar thing. It's brush based and it can also be automatic. And let's start with the automatic feature and see what we get. That's usually the best way to start if you don't know what you're doing, is just to hit the auto and see what it comes up with. And if it misses something, this is where we can actually go back in and adjust it. So let us go to red eye. Actually, let's start with auto first. I'm going to select auto. And what hopefully will happen, oh, wow, look at that. That did a pretty good job. Just by hitting auto, let me just undo that. Apple's photos created a little circle around the red eye that it detected. So it's going to scan the photos, scan this photo, detect a red eye, and if it does detect it, it will draw a circle around it and apply the filter there. So again, I select auto, and it's automatically fixed it. Now, let's say this did not automatically detect the eyes. I'm sorry, the red eye. We can instead use the brush. The brush, once we turn it on, is this little one right here. Select it, and you will see that there is a circle now on screen that is allowing us to do the red eye. So take the circle, move down over the red eyes, click once, easy breezy. We do that again. Go over here. Let's turn the brush on again. There we go. Select the eye, and if you wanted even more detail, you could bring the slider down. Sometimes it's a little tricky to do, but if you are patient, I think it's Command. Let's try that option. There we go. I think it's Option and the parentheses keys. Those will make the slider a little bit bigger, or sorry, make the circle a little bit bigger. And there we go. Perfect. That's pretty much an easy breezy way to work with the red eye. But again, if the auto doesn't do it, you can take the brush and go in and use this as well. Last thing that I'd also like to do while I have this photo open as well, so that's red eye, is I want to come down and get into noise reduction, sharpen, and vignette will come up within a minute. Noise reduction is basically this. It's meant to try and take away some of the fuzziness or the pixelization in some of these photos. Now, it's not a miracle worker, but it can do a really good job kind of denoising some of those photos. Sort of example, like if you were looking at my face from the camera and it was a little grainy in some of the color areas and whatnot, you can actually use this to kind of denoise it. And again, we can use the auto feature and attempt to do so. So it might be a little hard to see, but I'm going to undo this right now. You'll see right around the cheeks here, or where my mouse is, you'll see that it's a little bit grainy in that regard. And when we automatically do this and turn it on again, you'll see that the pixels have kind of softened or blurred a little bit. Might be a little hard to tell, but it's in around this area here. Instead of it being grainy, it's now kind of smoothed out a little bit. So that's kind of like what the denoising feature can do. And we can adjust this to our liking. And here's the other way. If you take it all the way to the top, you'll see how much smoother this is. If I go the opposite direction, you'll see that this picture is a little bit more grainy at that point. So if you want to smooth this out, denoising is not a bad way to do it. Just adjust it to your taste or until you get the results that you're looking for. That's a little bit smoother. Now, sharpen is kind of a similar thing. I'm going to choose auto on this one as well. Before I do, actually, let's undo that noise reduction one. Now let's say I choose auto for sharpen. Things like defined areas, like the area between the black, let's see in the iris here in this eye. This is going to kind of sharpen blurred edges and whatnot. And there we go. If I just kind of max this out, you'll see that this is really starting to sharpen a little bit more, I mean, a little bit too much at that point. There we go. And now that we got a decent sharpened image, let's say, we can actually use the noise reduction at this point to kind of soften that up a little bit more. But that's still a little bit grainy because it's too sharp. Let's knock that back a bit. Let's take that off. And auto one more time. So it's giving us a better picture as far as sharpness goes. And if I go up to the noise reduction, select that's auto, this kind of smooths this photo out a little bit better. So if I jump back to the before and after here, we've got demon eyes and a rougher picture. And if I let go of it and show the edited photo, it's just a little nicer. It's not like a full-fledged Photoshop, but these tools are in there to help us out quite a bit. Now, I think the last one I'm going to work on is a vignette. It's more of a special effect. Um, let's say I take, oh, this is a nice shot too. This is going to be a lot of fun because you can go in and play with a lot of these, even like the auto adjust feature. Ooh. So just by hitting the auto adjust, it went through all of the features and tried to find the best results. It's going to sharpen it. It's going to try to adjust the color, fix any white balance issues. Um, so that is quite, if I do a before and after, that auto enhance feature can kind of do a really decent job. Add a little bit more color, a little bit more depth. And the vignette, let's see here. This was a really colorful picture that I took in Singapore, actually, at the Buddha relic. Actually, one of the Hindu temples next to the Buddha tooth relic in Singapore. Really cool stuff. And if I hit the auto enhance here, you'll see that the color has been it pops a little bit more in that regard. So this is actually a really cool way to just to quickly enhance the photos if you don't know what you're doing. If you do know what you're doing, going into the adjust section and going in and manipulating these on your own, it's a fantastic way to do it. For those of you who are a little bit more knowledgeable about color and histograms and color curves and all that stuff, you've not been left out. Those are actually in here as well under white balance, curves, levels, and definition. So there's always a few more tools in here that are in more the pro level, more the professional photo editing systems. And you can get right into this. So under curves, you are able to work the RGB levels, the red, green, and blue, and either use the water drops to find the best black point, select the other eyedropper here for the white point, which I think is going to be pretty close to this one here. It's about the best bright I got in there. And then the middle one is more for the gray points. And then last but not least, there is this one will allow us to choose the color in the photo to set on the curve. So for example, if I want to pick red with the eyedropper, I'll pick red there, and it's dropped a point where it believes this color is on the curve. If I start to adjust this, this will either take away the red and work them accordingly. Now I have to admit, this is a little bit out of my wheelhouse when it comes to the histograms and things of that nature, but these tools are here if you need them. And last but not least, I'm going to go back to this photo. Trip to Vietnam and Ha Long Bay. So this is a nice little photo that I got snapped a picture of, and I'm just going to do a quick little auto enhance. Select it accordingly. The sky's a little bluer. There's a little bit more definition on my face. And you'll notice that as I've done this, it is applied with these curves and levels open. You'll see the histograms and all the different levels of the different levels of the channels. So we got red, blue, green, and we also got the luminance, which is the brightness, which is taken care of down here. So if we go to luminance, we can choose luminance, RGB, all as one, or you can individually move those sliders as well. So for example, if I just wanted to work with luminance, if I use bottom, which will be all the black points, you'll see that they all move accordingly and can be adjusted accordingly. The top one is going to be your white balance. Oh, wow, you can make some changes there. And if I automatically do this, that actually looks really nice as well. So there's some great features, great starting points by using the auto feature. And if we go into the next one, red, RGB, you'll see that these light levels are all represented in this histogram as well. And you can move those accordingly. In relation, if I want a little bit more blue sky, I can change that a little bit more as well, just by working these handles here. And then last but not least, if I want to make a specific one, like just the blue channel, see the blue channel here, and we can make these. So you'll see the sky is going to turn a little bit, or anything that's got blue in it. You can adjust that accordingly. I'm doing a before and after. It's not too bad, but if you really know what you're doing by reading these histograms and these tools in particular, you'll really be able to kind of get in there and tweak things out. Last but not least, we're going to go to the last on the list, which is vignette. And frankly, this makes the photo look like an old school, how do I put it? Let's just turn it on and see what we get here. Vignette's kind of like that old school where it kind of fades in from the outside of the photo. And we can determine how much radius it is. So if I drag this over, you'll see that it's kind of darkening around the edges. And then let's turn the softness up a little bit so it's a little bit more of a harder line. There we are. You'll see that there's a kind of like a halo coming around here. And if we turn the strength up, there we go. That's really kind of how this will work. Now, if you use this in conjunction with the crop feature, and you crop the photo ahead of time, we can actually do this. If I just want to do another 5:7 portrait mode, and let's see if we can frame me a little closer into this picture. There we go. And now, if we go back to adjust and play with vignette, you'll see that the vignette will also adjust according to the crop as well. And just for fun, if we want to make this look like an old school sepia tone or like an old school spaghetti western, we can add different filters just to kind of get that quick look. Like this makes it look like it's an old school photo from when I was, in the 70s and whatnot. So there's a lot of things you can play with in here, just from the quick auto. There we go. Silver tone in the noir. That's actually pretty cool too. So we select done, and now I've got myself a neat little photo with all of the edits kind of done up. So there's that cool new one that we did here. There's the red eye done here as well. And before I go, I got one more I want to show you as well. I've got a picture here. This is to kind of also show the ability of the retouch. You'll notice here that in this picture of these clay roofing tiles, there's a section in the right-hand side that's kind of got some of the paint that's flecked away. I want to show you how you can kind of get in here and use that retouch tool again. Retouch. Select this one, and we're going to make this brush a little bit bigger so that it will fill in this little gray brick part here. I'm going to choose my source by holding down Option, clicking this area here. And now when I move to this, we're going to start to see that this is starting to fill in those holes quite nicely. Now, if you use kind of a more of a smoother fill here, it's going to start to fill this in a little bit. Now, you got to play with where the source is coming from. For example, right there. And I want to move this a little bit at a time. You'll see that this is starting to fill in and work this particular area. The more times you click it, the more it blends in the source material and texture into this. Again, there are some heavier duty tools in some of the bigger programs like Photoshop and Affinity Photo, but this is a decent little retouching tool to kind of work that. So yeah, it's not perfect, but the more you kind of tweak this a little bit, you will find some really good results, like even just doing up here. Yeah, that's gone. That's gone. And again, you'll see with every click, it's showing you where the source is coming from. So not too bad once you've kind of done a few of these. Now, if you spend a little more time on this, you'll get it the way that you want. And just to give you a little before and after again, that's not bad. For that simple tool. And again, with a little bit more practice and whatnot, you can really get this flowing. Um, well, folks, we're down to the last 10 minutes here. So I'm going to start opening this up for questions. Just going to finish this share here. And I think we're back. Got my face up on the screen here. And I'm going to turn this over to, well, actually, I guess Rob has left us for the moment. We're just going to go to the chat section here. And I've got a question from Mary. Sorry about that. I do see that now, Mary. I apologize for that. It looks like I guess the some of the tools in my Zoom was hiding some of that menu section there. Sorry, apologize for that.
I think the end users have the ability to move where your pictures are on their Zoom session. So they would just have to move where they're seeing your picture, click and hold it, and move it to the left-hand side.
Understood. Sorry, Mary, just regarding that, if oh, it looks like Robert's already got that part answered. Are there any more questions for me before we sign off here? Okay, I think we're all done for the day. Thanks for joining us. And next week we are going to be, sorry, not next week, the first week of December, we will be doing the sharing portion of Fun with Photos, where we're going to talk about how we get these out to family and friends electronically, how we can get these printed out, and maybe some books and some other goodies like that. Thanks a bunch for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Oh, sorry, one more thing. I got a few more questions here. I got images saved on iCloud. You said need to make a copy first. No. If your pictures are in iCloud, let's say I'm just going to go back to that when I'm answering this one. Let's do this. Select done. Now, what I was referring to earlier is if I take a photo, so back to my photo library here, and let me just get that shared out again, share the screen. Go, share. You should be seeing my library again now. Okay, so I'm going to pick actually, I'm going to pick this one. This is a bit of a spooky one for you bug people out there. Don't freak out. That was how close I got to one of those real murder hornets. I don't recommend getting any closer than that. This is a great time for a telephoto lens. If I wanted to, let's say, have a duplicate of this, the purpose for that was this. If I want to have one version of this photo edited and adjusted, I can do so. So if I select duplicate one photo, or this one photo, you'll see a second one has been created, and I can go in here and make this, edit this one way, but still have a duplicate of the picture the old way. So for example, go in, do a quick little auto enhance, that pops out, and I can then go in and rename this, or go back out and go to the next one. So you'll see that there's a new photo in the library. Let's go done. So you'll see here where it was image 3861.jpg, it's duplicated this. It's also showing a badge in the top here with a bunch of those sliders indicating that this photo has been adjusted. And yeah, so there's been some edits to this photo that can be undone. This is the original one. Now I've got 2 files in here with the same name. What I got to do now, select it, right where the name is, and call this, retitle it however you want so it doesn't show up as a duplicate file name. So call this test. And there we go. That is what I had meant by duplicating it if you wanted to have different edited copies of this photo. Okay, let's see. I got one other question here. I have Craig Strickland's asking me to go back a bit. How to move pics, JPEGs, from a folder to an album. Okay, from a folder to an album. Let's kind of go back to that. So right now, I'm looking at all of my photos, and if I want to take a photo and add it to an album, I pick whatever photos I want. Let's see if I do multiple selections. Let's say something like this. With all of those selected, I can drag and drop them either to an album. Let's say I use this. Actually, let's do this. Go right to the bottom, and I have an album started off here, but not yet populated, called Walk to Work. I'm going to select this one, hold down the Command key, and add additional photos by Command clicking each one that I want. I will then drag and drop these JPEGs to the Walk to Work. And we'll now see these pictures have been added to the album. And if I wanted to, the difference between albums and from a folder to an album. Okay, I get this now. I understand what you're talking about. If you are talking about grabbing a picture from a folder that resides on your desk, you are going to just get the Finder up here, see if you can find this. I've got a Finder window open like so. Let's see if I have any. Yeah, I do have some graphics here. So I've got some pictures here that I'm going to drag right from Finder and into an album. So for example, I'll grab this one right here, this big red S. If I click and drag that from the desktop into one of these folders, I could do that. Just like so. It's going to, now I've already got one of these in my library. And so that's why it's complaining, hey, are you sure you still want to bring this photo in? I'm going to say yes. And just bring it in again. But you'll also see now in this shop content album, there is, well, that photo has now showed up in here. So to answer your question, Craig, yes, you can drag and drop from a Finder folder directly into photos and or directly into the albums. I hope that helps. All right, folks, I think we're just about out of time now. So we're going to wrap this up. And thank you for your questions. Also, check out simply.ca. We got some great specials coming up for the month of November and December. Some great Black Friday deals are going to be coming around. So check out it online or come into the shop and pay us a visit. And hope to see you then. Thanks.